Howdy everyone, it's Sam. I hope you're doing really well. If you're new around here, I hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. And if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Today's Monday, recording it before team lists come out tomorrow in 24 hours time. I am just so strapped for time tomorrow afternoon. And so I wanted to get these tips out to you tonight so I'm not rushing around like a hairy bulldog tomorrow. So before I get into the tips, I want to give like an updated reaction to what happened in yesterday's Cowboys-Tigers game. I actually think it was a penalty. I think Kapoa ran directly sideways and intentionally got in the line of Kyle Felt. And Kyle Felt, he probably milked it. He did milk it. And he's copped a bit of backlash. I've seen a comment or two that said his reputation is now ruined forever. Turn it up. And I've seen Adam Reynolds feign it maybe 2 or 3 times for the Brisbane Broncos this season alone. And he was praised for it because he was that much more intelligent than his opposition. So I praise Kyle Felt for doing it. I think it is a penalty. However, I completely disagree with how we got to that decision in the first place. There was no more time left. There was no stoppage of play. And the Cowboys weren't allowed to activate their captain's challenge, in my opinion. But it looked like that the referee, Chris Butler, saw Kapoa had ran directly sideways to get in the path of Kyle Felt. So he was umming and ahhing about what he was going to do. But look, honestly, it's actually kind of nice to see the Cowboys not get dudded. And I'm not saying that we're the only team that gets dudded, but fair dinkum, as so far as for and against goes, as so far as calls that actually give the Cowboys victory or not, I dare say that we get dudded more times than not. And I'm pretty confident in saying that too. So it's actually kind of refreshing that Cowboys get a call go their way for freaking once. So anyway, less than 24 hours ago that happened, and we've got to move on from it now, don't we? I don't think the West Tigers are going to be successful in overturning the decision. I think people just now need to move on. What's done is done. So let's get into the tips. And last week I only got one wrong. That was the Dragons-Manly game. The bloody Dragons hoodoo, the stranglehold they have over the Sea Eagles continues, god damn it. But it might be a different story this weekend. So anyway, nonetheless, let's get into it. Round 20 of the 2022 NRL season is the annual Women in League round, this year in its 16th edition, and the round kicks off on Thursday night from 4 Pines Park. The Manly Warringah Sea Eagles host the Sydney Roosters, and at time of recording at midday on Monday, the Sydney Roosters are $1.70 favourites coming into the contest. Manly Warringah Sea Eagles are $2.10, and that's on sportsbet.com.au. And the team list news, I assume, is going to be Jake Trbojevic, Andrew Davey, and Lachlan Croker. They're all going to come straight back in. It was either COVID or a concussion, but I think all 3 of those gentlemen that missed out on their game last week against the Dragons out there at Cogra, they're all going to return for the Manly Sea Eagles. And then for the Sydney Roosters, it doesn't look like they copped any injuries. It doesn't look like that anyone's on report for anything. So I think the same team that flogged Newcastle last week is going to back up against Manly. These two sides did meet earlier this season. The Sydney Roosters put in 50 minutes of serious power, and then it sort of just faltered, didn't it? But they got away with a 13 plus points victory over the Manly Sea Eagles at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The Sydney Roosters form line is not too shabby. They lost 4 in a row against Penrith and Melbourne, but it was in that game against Penrith where I think they sort of rediscovered themselves a little bit. They then had the bye, and then they've come out and they've trounced St George Illawarra, and they destroyed the Newcastle Knights. Now, those two teams, in my opinion, I don't think are going to play finals football. Well, definitely not Newcastle. I don't think Dragons are going to do it. So it's sort of, it's still a little bit wobbly about the Sydney Roosters form line, but hey, they scored 54 and 42 points in 2 weeks, so there you go. The Manly Sea Eagles, however, I really think they were very much dampened by Lachlan Croker's absence. Yes, Jake Trbojevic was massive, but I think Lachlan Croker just, he hadn't missed a game for a couple of years. He missed it last week, and it showed. I really do think it showed. In saying all that, I do think that the Sydney Roosters form line is much better than the Manly Sea Eagles. It really should be Manly Sea Eagles victory this Thursday night, just because it's gone Roosters Manly, Roosters Manly, Roosters. And but I don't think they'll do it. I think the Roosters they're alive and well in 2022. So I'm going to tip the Sydney Roosters to win a close one, 1-12. There are 2 games on Friday night, and game number 1 is from Mount Smart Stadium in Auckland. The New Zealand Warriors are hosting the Melbourne Storm, and the Melbourne Storm are coming into the game as favourites. The New Zealand Warriors are floating around that $3 mark on sportsbet.com.au. It looks like that both of these sides are going to be by and large the same. That came out last week. The New Zealand Warriors against the Canberra Raiders put in maybe their best half an hour in about 2 or 3 months. New Zealand's first half was very good. It was very, very good. And then they faded out, unfortunately. And then for the Melbourne Storm, they lost their game and they looked really bad. They looked awful against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. But hey, they're depleted, they're battered. They do have excuses. But Craig Bellamy, he had an extraordinary comment in his press conference saying that he doesn't have confidence that he can turn this all around. That's a really heavy statement to make, in my opinion. The last time that the Melbourne Storm lost 5 games in a row was 2012, and in 2012, the Melbourne Storm won the competition. I don't think they are going to lose to the New Zealand Warriors. They have a stranglehold on them, and look, to bat for the New Zealand Warriors, it's their first encounter with the Melbourne Storm since their embarrassing 70-10 loss on Anzac Day earlier this year. They're back in front of the faithful for the first time in a month. And look, maybe the energy can lift them up and scrape them past over the Melbourne Storm. And again, the Melbourne Storm, not just last week, they're playing some really ordinary football. Their completions and their discipline, it stated as much throughout the first 8 rounds of the season that their completions and their penalties, they were the worst in the competition at one stage there. And now it's really starting to come back and bite them. They've still got no Brandon Smith this weekend. And there's a possibility that big Nelson Asofa-Solomona will not partake in this contest. He was charged twice for 2 different instances. And he's facing 2 match bans for each incident. Or he can cop a $6,000 fine. So I don't know what's going to happen with Nelson Asofa-Solomona. I bet he cops the fine, $6,000. But gee whiz, that's a heavy price, man. That's a heavy, heavy fine, no matter who you are in the NRL, no matter how much of a grub you are. So I'm going to tip the Melbourne Storm to win this game 1-12, even though Nelson Asofa-Solomona seems like he's not going to back up. I just simply cannot trust the Warriors to get this job done. And look, I've got to also say, Shaun Johnson, man, there was a critical moment towards the end of that first half last week where his leadership, his skills needed to come to the foray, and he kicked the ball out on the full on the last tackle. And that, while the Raiders didn't score in that first half, just that kick out on the full just sort of was a whack in confidence and a whack in all the momentum that they had maintained and sustained throughout that first half. So Shaun Johnson, man, that was incredibly disappointing last week, man. So I'm going to tip the Melbourne Storm, who I don't think they've lost in New Zealand since 2015. So I'm going to get them to end their losing streak and get back on track. Event on Friday night is from Combank Stadium, the Western Sydney Derby. Parramatta Eels hosting the Penrith Panthers, and the Penrith Panthers are heavy favourites, whereas the Parramatta Eels are floating around that $3.75 mark last time I checked. Maybe I'm incorrect about that, but I know that they're inside the $3 margin, which is pretty heavy on the Parramatta Eels considering they did beat Penrith earlier this season. But gee whiz, time flies, and 10 weeks ago, you thought Parramatta Eels, that was going to be the win that really catapults them into the top four and really makes them premiership contenders. But over the past 4 weeks or so, man, Parramatta Eels, they just seem to be playing the game in second or third gear. They just look like they don't have the same oomph in defence. They don't have the same spark or communication in attack. It's all looking really sort of blasé at the moment, man. And the Penrith Panthers, I'll say this about them too. They have played a few games against the Gold Coast, Sydney Roosters, last week against Cronulla, where they have played some scrappy footy. But it took them half an hour, an entire first half to really get going. And once they got going, I mean, Cronulla were really never going to be in it, to be honest with you. But Penrith Panthers, man, there's a few scrappy games in them, bro. And if you catch them on an off day, they're susceptible to a loss. Any team is susceptible to a loss if you don't show up properly on the day. But for the Parramatta Eels, bro, they were, I don't know, I don't want to say the word embarrassed, but the Brisbane Broncos went to town on them last week, man. The Eels were not in that game. They really weren't in that game ever, to be honest with you. So, look, I'm going to tip the Penrith Panthers. I just think they're undeniable at the moment. And the Parramatta Eels, man, they are on the cusp. It's crazy, man, because I had them as grand finalists at the start of the year. I tipped myself a Eels versus Roosters grand final. Struck me freaking pink. And, no, I think Eels, gee whiz, they're on the cusp of missing the top 8 altogether. Crazy. So, Penrith Panthers, 1-12. This Friday night. Super Saturday features 3 contests, and game number 1 is from Cbus Super Stadium. The Gold Coast Titans host the Canberra Raiders. The Canberra Raiders are the favourites. The Gold Coast Titans are the outsiders. The Gold Coast Titans are on an 8-game losing streak. However, they scored 26 points last week. They haven't scored 20 points or more in about 6 or 7 weeks, so they broke some sort of duck there. For the Canberra Raiders, though, you just don't know what you're going to get with them every single week, man. They were down 12-14-0 at halftime against the New Zealand Warriors in front of their home fans. And then look, they showed great resiliency, maturity to come out and turn the tide, man. But gee whiz, you can't start slow against anyone, bro. And the Titans, when's this losing streak going to end for them? You look at the draw, they've got Storm and Manly, they've got a trip across the ditch in the final round of the season, so you don't really know where it's going to come if they're going to win a game this season. But I do think that this is a danger game for the Raiders, bro. The Gold Coast Titans were up 22 points to 0 the last time these two sides met earlier this season before the Raiders came back roaring, man. So the Titans, this could be that win. Just in case if the Raiders don't travel well this weekend, if they have a slow start again, you just don't know what the Raiders are going to do, man. So look, I actually give the Titans a sniff. They scored 26 points last week, albeit against the Bulldogs. It's going to be a completely different task ahead of them, obviously, this weekend. But I'm going to tip the Canberra Raiders to win a close one, 1-12 on Super Saturday. If you don't mind, this is the game of the round. Cronulla Sutherland Sharks are hosting the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and the Cronulla Sharks are coming into the game as favourites, whereas the South Sydney Rabbitohs are outsiders. Boy, howdy, this is going to be a beauty of a game and will reveal so much. Now, before I actually get into it, I want to say my piece. So, on Twitter, I left myself a comment, and it, by and large, actually seemed like a lot of people agreed with me. And it was the following: I am not on the South Sydney hype train just yet. I'm at the train station, but I haven't bought a ticket yet. All right? I'm thinking about it. They have beaten an out-of-form Parramatta. They scraped by Newcastle and Canterbury Bankstown, they leaked 28 points in both of those games, man. And then they defeated a Melbourne Storm outfit that were battered and depleted. South Sydney Rabbitohs, I'm just not on that hype train yet, but if they do go down to Shark Park and win this weekend, then I'm going to buy a ticket. I'll buy myself a ticket. Now, the history for the Rabbitohs at Shark Park isn't flattering. They haven't played at Shark Park since 2019, but they haven't won in the Shire since 2014. So it's been about 7 years there since their last win against Cronulla in Cronulla. Now, for team list news, I think the South Sydney Rabbitohs are going to welcome back Tane Milne. I think he'll then play centre or wing, but I think that means that Jed Cartwright will either come off the bench or play in the second row. But I think he'll come off the bench, actually, Jed Cartwright. And then for the Cronulla Sharks, they've got a massive blow, bro. Dale Finucane is facing a 2 to 3 week match ban for his head collision with Stephen Crichton. It was, I do think it was reckless. Do I think he should be suspended 2 or 3 weeks for it? I don't think so. I don't agree with it, but I think maybe he should face a monetary fine for being reckless in that instance, man. Gee whiz. So Dale Finucane is going to be a massive loss, and Cameron McInnes will slot into that lock position, I have no doubt. And maybe a young man like Hazelton will take his spot on the interchange bench there. I am going to tip the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. They would have learnt so much about themselves last week in that game against Penrith Panthers. They were in it. They were very, very impressive. And not just because Penrith Panthers were a little bit rusty to start off the game. I think Cronulla were very, very impressive. And then just the Penrith Panthers just smothered them. And yeah, they couldn't get the better of them in the end. So I'm going to tip the Cronulla Sharks. Dale Finucane's a massive loss. Latrell Mitchell can score a field goal from 50 metres out. I think this will be golden point or close to, man. But I think just the defense, it'll be the defense of the Cronulla Sharks that will get them the win in this contest. Something, don't know, something to the tune of 20 points to 14, I guess, something like that. But I'll go Cronulla Sharks 1-12 in the game of the round this weekend. And the last game on Super Saturday is from Suncorp Stadium. The very much informed Brisbane Broncos host a seething West Tigers. And yeah, West Tigers, man, they put a lot of pride in that jersey yesterday. And they should be full of confidence, and they will be pretty raring to go against the Brisbane Broncos this weekend. It's the second leg of their Queensland trip. And we'll see how they go. But the Brisbane Broncos, bro, ultra impressive last week against the Parramatta Eels down away in Sydney. I believe that Selwyn Cobbo is going to be back for them. And for the West Tigers, I don't think there'll be any team list changes there for them. Look, sorry, West Tigers. I think more you were very honourable in defeat yesterday. I think this will be that 13 plus points loss that you guys are going to suffer on your Queensland weekend away, man. So Brisbane Broncos to win this game 13 plus. And on the Sunday ticket, there are two contests, and game number one is from McDonald Jones Stadium in the Hunter. It's the Newcastle Knights hosting the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, and by Joe, Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs are coming in as the favourites, and the Newcastle Knights are the outsiders. Now, I think Kurt Mann is going to be playing this game. I think he was injured, but he will be available this weekend. Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, on the other hand, I don't think they're going to be missing anyone. I think their team list from yesterday, after they belted the Gold Coast Titans, I think they'll all back up. And look, I want to say something about the Newcastle Knights, right? I think they have been utterly disgraceful in 2022. They have shown no ticker at all in front of their home fans this season. They played a fast half last week, and Kalen Ponga went down like a sack of spuds again, and they just folded terribly. But boy howdy, they have been super frustrating, and if you're a Newcastle Knights fan, you must be absolutely livid with some of the performances that they have been dishing up. But David Clemmer, for example, and once a week, once I feed his brother gets up for him. But yeah, man, Newcastle Knights in 2022, gee whiz, they've been so frustrating to watch. So I'm actually going to tip the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs because, again, on average, like it was last week against the Roosters, the Newcastle Knights' performances in front of their home fans is 40 points to 6 or 40 points to 12. That's how it's been the entire year, man, for Newcastle fans. So with the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs on freaking fire as well, I'm going to tip the Bulldogs to win this game 13 plus, bro. Especially Kalen Ponga out, potentially for the rest of the season for the Newcastle Knights. So Canterbury Bankstown, 13 plus. And the final game is down in Cogra, Netstrata Jubilee Oval. It's Dragons versus Cowboys. Cowboys are going to be the favourites and the Dragons are the outsiders. I don't want to go too much into it because I'm doing a match preview with Kate Cornish and Theophilia Mosby Nona tomorrow night live on my channel, which is why I'm so strapped for time tomorrow because I really want to get that right. But I do want to say this. In Cowboys' entire history, they have only ever won twice in Cogra. One time in 1996, pre-NRL era, and in the NRL era, they won in 2003. They have not won at Netstrata Jubilee Oval since 2003, 19 odd years. And that includes a couple of games against the Sharkies over the past couple of seasons where Sharks had to move their home games to Netstrata Jubilee Oval. So, gee whiz, Cowboys, they can rectify and make some history this Sunday afternoon, and I am crossing my fingers that your boy is going to actually be there live in person. So I really hope I can get out there and attend this contest. And again, it's Women in League round, so get out there and thank your mums and your sisters or your missus or whoever, man. Put the spotlight on them. It is going to be on them, and deservedly so this weekend. And in saying that, the NRLW is only around the corner as well. So yeah, Women League round, I've always enjoyed it, and there should be really some really good footy play this weekend. In particularly, that Sharks Rabbitohs game is going to be absolutely fascinating viewing. So everybody that's recently subscribed and continuously supports the channel, it really means a lot. Like, I've just had a blast this year, and ever since I started doing it. So thank you all very much for the continuous support. Hope you have a very nice week, and hope your team wins, except for the St. George Illawarra Dragons. And I'll talk to you guys over the next couple of days. Adios.